come over from Nottingham, he's going to speak, he's going to tell us his story about how God dealt with his life. How he dealt with it first, and then how he handed it over to God and things changed. Come on, Chris, come and speak to us. Everybody is on your side tonight, aren't you?
Yes. One thing I'll say is you know how to get the party started. You really, really do. How can I live up to this start? I'll try and do this without glasses. I hate taking glasses on, off. This picture in a minute will make sense to everybody. See, my journey to Christ wasn't a classical journey to Christ when you hear of like a Damascus. It was a sort of Damascus Road experience, but it wasn't one that was, I would say, where initially I felt like touched by God. It was one where I had to battle for. I had to battle for it, and it had to be something that appealed to me in my way. I'm not saying I wanted the gospel on my terms, but the way my sort of I approached things was I needed something that was, logically made sense. Because from my perspective, if I wanted to go and find out about God, I wouldn't ask a religious person, because a religious person would be biased. So this is the way that I sort of framed my worldview. Now, what I want to do today is give you my experience in the sense of how I came to the Christian worldview and came to surrender my life to Christ and to His kingdom. But I want to show you some of the steps that I had to take. Now these steps really impacted upon me and my life and the way I thought about things, and really gave me a solid foundation. It was an evidence-based journey. I wasn't willing to surrender my life. I was a stubborn man. I wasn't willing to surrender my life unless I saw evidence for things. And this is something that actually grows locally. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Berry Hill Nature Reserve. There's a place, someone said earlier on they've heard of Berry Hill. It's around here somewhere anyway, in Stoke-on-Trent. This is one of your flyers, just to make sure I'm not making it up. It's Stoke-on-Trent.gov flyer, going wild, going out, exploring the nature reserves around here. Anyway, you may want to go to Berry Hill Nature Reserve after I tell you about this flower. It is absolutely incredible. It's the evolutionist nightmare. Right, I want to say one thing though. My testimonial tonight isn't, if I'm honest, it isn't my testimonial. It's a testimonial to God. It's a testimony to His mercy, to His grace, to His love, His justice, His patience. And also, I'd say grace again, because grace to the arrogance of people in their delusions of His existence as sovereign. And He puts up with that every single day. And I used to be one of those. So this is really God's testimony. And my testimony isn't different to anyone else's testimony here, really. There's some shocking things about mine. There's a little bit of a Damascus Road experience. But the reality about testimonials, it's a transference from death to life, from darkness to light. And every single person here who's given their life to Christ has done exactly the same thing. And with testimonials, sometimes we've got to realise we don't really want to put the focus on the messenger. The glory goes to God. Christ is centre stage, and that's why I hope I can encourage you to this evening with that. Now, in my sort of journey to Christ, I'll give you a little bit of background. I grew up in a very violent home. My dad was a bit of a mini Adolf Hitler, and I don't mean that in a joke. He was a very, very nasty man. He beat me and done horrible things. He used to weigh my mum on a Monday morning on the scales. If she hadn't lost weight, he used to beat her with a cane. He was a nasty character. And thankfully, social services got involved, and I was taken into a children's home, and from that one I moved to a different children's home. From there, I went into 2 foster parents. Back then it was still called something TPP or TPS, Teenage Placement Project. I know you said you're into fostering. I don't know if the terminology always changes, doesn't it? But I went into that. I had no direction, no guidance. I felt broken, I'll be honest. I couldn't really see a future. So I got in with a crew of lads that nicked from shops and all that, and found familiarity amongst people who had a bit of a reputation. So I started doing petty crime. Then from that point, when I hit about 18, I went through a little bit of a journey where I was desperate to find something extra. I knew I was lacking something. I felt a hole inside myself. I knew I was a broken biscuit, to excuse the pun. But and at that point, I started to take an interest in different religions. So I went to Birmingham Central Library to a Hare Krishna convention, listening about blue monkeys with 6 arms, very surreal. I looked into Jehovah's Witnesses, because they seem to have methodically, approach you and reason and use logic and all that, and that appealed to me, but there was great gaping holes that sort of frightened me off. And I looked into self-help and things like that, and so I studied with Paul McKenna in London and got involved in that self-help game. And at the end, it's all empty. So at the end of that pointless journey, I realised that I knew crime, and that's where my life was going to be. And I got back into it, but in a big way. So I was involved in large cannabis productions. I had a group of people working under me. There was money floating around, there was white-collar crime going on, credit cards, there was firearms floating around, and it was a bit of a kudos thing. I felt like the boy. And some of my mates would go to Birmingham, would walk into a club, do you know what I mean, and sort of directly the bouncers let us in, and I loved the kudos. But again, the money and the holidays and all that, it don't cut it. There's still that yearning inside, there's still that feeling that this ain't right. It doesn't satisfy that urge and that need I've got. Then what happened was we moved from Birmingham up to actually on the border of Nottingham. It was Nottingham originally, but in Derbyshire now. We moved up to the area. Number one, there was another criminal that was in Chesterfield, and we got on really well and very close. I wanted to be close to him, it was easier. And the other reason was, you can spend money away from your hometown if you've got money. You can't spend it around people you know, because people get bitter, and they'll call Crime Stoppers, and Crime Stoppers don't really take friendly to criminals. So we moved away to try and circumnavigate that sort of issue. But while we was up in a place called Long Eaton, we rented a very big house. I thought I was the big cheese, but I soon realised I wasn't. But when I was there, my dad, who was estranged, got ill with brain cancer, and it was Katrina really said, we need to look after this guy, because of the way he was and the way he treated people. He never had one friend. He had nobody in the world. So we took him in, we looked after him, we gave him palliative care, and he started getting respite in a nursing home called Treetops. And on a Wednesday, he would get picked up and dropped off at Treetops. And it was on one such Wednesday we went and collected him, and I saw the lights on a small Anglican church just over the road from the hospice. And I said to Katrina, drop me off here, I'm going to give you a call in a bit, and you come and pick me up. And she was all, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just going to go for a walk. Anyway, I walked over to this Anglican church called Risley All Saints. I walked in there in the middle of communion. I sat at the back on one of the pews, and when I sat there, I had this amazing sense of peace and stillness come over me. It was like all my problems and every bit of drama throughout my life had been lifted, and I felt at peace, absolutely at peace. And after the service, I spoke to the 2 church wardens, Rob and Roger, great guys. I had a tear come down my face. I think, what's going on? And then I spoke to Glenn Lucas, an evangelical vicar who got such a deep love for God, and a very, very, very smart guy, and understands the gospel really well and how to convey the message. So anyway, after that I went outside and I sat on the bench outside the church, rang Katrina, she was coming to pick me up. Glenn came out, the vicar, after locking up the church, sat down with me, and I thought, oh, we're a smart aleck, and sort of try and trip him up with questions, which I failed miserably because he knew his Bible and he knew his evidence. And it was really listening to his rational explanation and his compassion, feeling his compassion, he really wanted to share it, and he cared about me, that triggered a bit of a thirst for research. So that's what I did. I went off and I researched and I studied. One of the guys I discovered was an early church father, a brilliant guy, a guy called Thomas Aquinas. You've probably heard of Thomas Aquinas. Fantastic guy. Produced some brilliant arguments that we even use to this day. The cosmological argument, the Callum argument. He produced a great work. And one of the things he said, he set up a premise and a conclusion. And it's a really clever premise and conclusion. And it really helped me start to unlock things. And one thing he said was, everything that begins to exist has a cause. So everything that begins to exist, it actually has a cause. I mean, it's cause, the beginning of it. He goes, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe had a cause. And I became fixated on what was the cause of the universe. What was it? As you see, can see behind me if it has worked, yeah? If you can't, shall I move this over a little bit? Can most people see that? Okay. This was a fascinating thing. So if you look at the far end, you've got the explosion, it's the Big Bang. This is the closest thing that science has got at the moment that's popular of the explanation of the beginning of the universe. It might be completely wrong. It might be. God might have done it a completely different way. But we do know certain things. The universe had a beginning. It's not eternal. It had a beginning. The thing that really got me was here where you see that explosion there. What science says, and again, they might be completely wrong, was it was two elements that existed. I don't know how they were there, because how they know because they weren't there, but in scientific sort of fields, it's meant to be hydrogen and helium. And what happened, according to the theory, is there was an explosion around the hydrogen and helium. It created the universe and then the stars, and everything came out of born of that. Now that bit bored me. I was absolutely bored by it. What fascinated me was, well, what happened before that? If we rewind a bit further back, when there's no helium, no hydrogen, what have we got? Well, according to science and scientific philosophy, the answer is we've got nothing. Suddenly I was like, well, nothing? How can something come from nothing? How is that even possible? It's not possible. And when I mean nothing. So we can't even get our head around that concept. There's no space, there's no time, because time is a measurement between points. Something has to exist for time to exist. Time is like using your watch, a calendar, a map, A to B. There has to be something to measure. But if there's no matter, if there's nothing, then there's no time. So there's no space, no time, no energy or power, because that hadn't started yet. There was no matter. So the cause had to be something then. If you use that process of logic, because I had to go this way, that process of logic was, the cause has to be immaterial, it had to be timeless. Another word for timeless is eternal. So it's immaterial, it's eternal, it's spaceless, and a vast energy. Well, that's sort of a classic definition for the characteristics of God. And that dawned on me. I was really hit. Well, why can't they see this? Why don't they see this? Why don't they see that there's an immaterial, super powerful, spaceless, timeless cause? It completely baffled me. So what I did then was I thought, well, who's the biggest name in the natural world? David Attenborough. And I did some research into David Attenborough. He used to be an atheist, became an agnostic. And we haven't got time tonight to see a clip. But there's a clip of an interview that really impressed something on me. It was an interview where he was asked, why he was an agnostic and why he wasn't an atheist. He said, well, there's a simple reason. He said, I was in Africa. And he said, we were filming one of the BBC wildlife documentaries, and there was a really big termite mound. And we'd chopped the top of the termite mound off. We'd rigged a camera set up over the top. And he goes, these termites are completely blind. Absolutely blind. They look after the pupae, they clean out the termite mound and do all these jobs, but they completely lack the sense of sight. And he said, as I was looking over, I was thinking, well, they're completely unaware that we're filming. They're completely unaware that I'm standing here looking at them. And he said, he's David Attenborough, you can Google this clip, it's brilliant. He goes, suddenly something dawned on me. Maybe I'm lacking the faculty to acknowledge as a God looking over me as I'm looking over the termites. Maybe the problem's in me. So David, you're spot on. The problem's in you. So from there, there was another programme with David Attenborough. He got me onto this plant, which was one of them old BBC programmes, David Attenborough, Life of Plants, if anyone remembers it. This is the bee orchid. Absolutely amazing plant. Grow across the UK. You get them around here, berry fields, natural reserves, they can grow by my house and that. The amazing thing about this plant here, it looks a little bit like a bee, but that's not enough really to say, oh, we're trying to mimic a bee. It looks a little bit like a bee. It's a bit furry, got black and yellow. But there's something intriguing about this plant. Something intriguing about this plant. And there's a scripture that really fits here. Romans 1:20. For God's characteristics are clearly seen. His personality is clearly seen from the world's creation onward. And then there's another point in that scripture. So that it is inexcusable. There's no excuse for not seeing it. Listen to this. This plant looks a bit like a bee. It does something absolutely phenomenal. It's got 2 pheromones, 2 chemical signatures. The first chemical signature goes off. And what it says is to a particular species of bee, native in this country, it says to them, hey, I'm a female queen bee, left a hive, making a hive, come here guys. And it draws them in. But if that species of bee isn't there, then it switches to another pheromone, another chemical signature, to a completely different species of bee, and it says to that species of bee, hey, you know, if they're not listening, do you want to come over? Do you know what I mean? It communicates with them. Now, if that's not impressive, I'll show you what is impressive. What's impressive is botanists for decades, for hundreds of years, have been splicing and slicing plants. We understand plants, we understand orchids. We used to have orchid houses, didn't we? The one thing we do know, never, ever in an orchid has a lens, a pupil, a cornea, ever been found. We've never found an eye in an orchid. It's a bit daft, doesn't it? We've never found a nose on an orchid. Never done it. Never. We've never found the olfactory system, which is the technical name for a nose, the sensory organ to smell things. So if an orchid hasn't got eyes, and an orchid hasn't got a nose, then how can an orchid know what a bee looks like to know to copy it black and yellow? If it hasn't got a nose, how can it know what the pheromone is of this species of bee? And it hasn't done it once, it's done it twice. How can it do it? Do you know? It is inexcusable. Romans 1:20. It's inexcusable to see your Creator. Your Creator. The only thing that makes sense, is an intelligent God made that plant. Yeah. The intelligent God saw the plant, saw the pollination process, and put it together into the marvellous creation of the bee orchid. You see, the orchid is not even aware it's an orchid. It hasn't got self-consciousness. It doesn't know it's an orchid. It doesn't know what bees are. It doesn't know what pheromones and chemicals are. So that really, really, really impressed me. You see, there's another brilliant scripture, which is Psalms 14, verse 1, which says that it tells you the type of person that will be ignoring this type of thing. It said it's the fool. It's the fool that is said in his heart that there is no God. It's foolish. God is plain, he's spelling it out. It's inexcusable. If you want to carry on and say it, you're just a fool. An absolute fool. Now, another thing that I looked at was Jesus Christ. And to me, he either, and I'll be honest, because I never really had any proper formal education at school, but he was one of 2 things. He was a non-entity, he didn't exist, he was made up. And that's honestly how I felt at the time. Or he was a lunatic. And that's honestly how I felt at the time. He was a madman, a charlatan, a bit like a Darren Brown. Or he just didn't even exist. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go and ask Glyn, because he's biased, the vicar. I'm not going to go and ask a Christian about Jesus, because I know it's going to be slanted. I'm not interested in that, because this was just me, and it might be right for everyone else to go and speak to a Christian, but for me in that moment, it wasn't the right thing. So I thought to myself, who would be the best person to approach about Jesus to get an unbiased decision? It would be the people that hate him. The people that oppose Christianity, the people that want to undermine him. So that's where I went. The first place I went was the Talmud. The Talmud is a collection of religious Jewish books. You have the Babylonian Talmud and then you have the Jerusalem Talmud. And it's a collection of rabbinical sayings from the Sanhedrins, the courts. You know, you remember the trial of Christ was that Sanhedrin that formed. Well, these have formed for a very long time and they have records all the way through. And this is what they said about Jesus, the enemies of Christ. It says on the eve of the Passover, we know that to be Easter for Christians, It says he was hanged and hanged on a cross. But then it says this. It said the reason for that was because he practiced sorcery and he enticed Israel into great apostasy. Just think about that just for a moment. Just think about what's that mean? What does it mean? What's it mean to me and you here? So if he was a fraud, wouldn't they just go and say, well, we spoke to lots of people and he didn't do any of the things he said. This guy here they mentioned, here he is. It's a lie, he never resurrected her daughter. There were too many testimonials coming forward continually. Christ had too much support. There was too much evidence that he did the things he said. So they couldn't say he was a charlatan, they couldn't say he was a liar. They had to say it was by another source. So they attributed it to sorcery. There's loads of people you can quote from the secular world, but there's another person that I went to which was a Greek philosopher who hated Christianity. Again, he wrote a whole big thesis defending the philosophy of Greece and attacking Christianity of Christ. Celsus from the 2nd century, he said exactly the same thing. He said his words, quote out of his word, Jesus performed his miracles by sorcery. He actually says Jesus done miracles. Straight away my attention's caught. I've been to the enemy, and the enemy's saying he's done it. There's no smoke without fire. So I follow the evidence. And then I looked at the resurrection, because if there was evidence for that, not just from Christians saying it, and the Bible saying it, if there's evidence of the resurrection happening, then that changes everything. So we're not just dealing with a group of nice people and a religion, that changes everything. Well, here's an interesting thing. September the 11th, 2 planes impact into the Twin Towers. It's an atrocity, it's an awful event, especially the West sees it that way. Certainly people see it as a victory. But to us, it is a horrific thing that happened. But here's a question. Those extremists, those terrorists on that plane, do you think they thought it was a bit of a hoax, their belief system? Do you think they thought, well, actually I'm doing this for a lie? It's not true. Muhammad isn't real. Allah isn't real. The Quran is not rubbish. I'm doing it because it's not true. No. Nobody dies for a lie. No one dies for a lie. But the interesting thing is that we take the same logic and flip it over to the New Testament. We've got the account of the empty tomb. Who does Jesus go to first? Well, we have the account of the women. Then we have the account he meets someone on a roadway. Then we have the account of the upper room. Then we account of the 500 when he goes to heaven. So all these people are saying they've actually witnessed Jesus alive. They might be lying. How do we know? Well, no one dies for a lie. And if you know the history, the early church history, and you look at the early church history, you'll see what happened to the apostles. Some were pulled apart, their bodies were pulled apart. Some were actually chose to be crucified upside down. Stoned, people fed to lions, to hyenas, they were slaughtered by the sword in the arenas. They were even strapped to stakes and covered in bitumen and set fire to light up the royal palatial gardens of Rome. So they can't die for a lie. These people genuinely believed they saw a living Jesus. They genuinely believed they saw a Jesus rise to heaven, and they were willing to die for it. If they had made that up on the spot, they'd have ran to save their lives. So suddenly there is more evidence starting to back up. I don't know how I found this quote, but it jumped out at me. It's really impressive actually. It's Albert Einstein was interviewed about Jesus, so I don't know if you knew that. A phenomenal thing. He said, he was asked about Jesus, and he said, I am a Jew, but I'm enthralled by the luminous figure of the Nazarene. Jesus is too colossal for the pen of phrasemongers, however artful. He further added, no man can read the Gospels without feeling the actual presence of Jesus. His personality pulsates in every word. That was Albert Einstein, a true academic. But he recognised he read the Gospels and Christ was in the Gospels. He pulsated in every single word. Amazing. Again, there's lots of things to go through, but we just don't have time. Another thing that impressed me was the animal world. I used to think to myself, well, people are always talking about we're just monkeys and evolved from monkeys. Well, what's that about? I've got to get my head around this, because that's going to be niggling down. I've got to deal with this. I've got to unpack this. I've got to look at this. Well, what's the data? Well, the data is we're completely different to the animal kingdom, noticeably different to things mark us as different, spirituality and free will. You don't get monkeys going to their version of a mosque, temple or synagogue. You don't have a species of animal apart from humankind who adore, who worship the supreme being. Animals don't do it. And their morals are different, their code's different. For example, if every single member of you here today was a praying mantis, then I can tell you it's socially and morally acceptable for you tonight to go home and eat your mate. It's socially acceptable. You can go home and eat your mate. And if you want something closer to humanity, you want to go for a mammal, let's go for a panda. If every single one of you here tonight was a panda, then again, it's socially acceptable if you had twins to throw one away to die and just take care of one. But if that was a human that did that, what would be said? What would you read in the press? If that was a human, we'll describe them as disgusting, evil, unjust, maybe even animalistic. Because we see the difference, we know the difference. It's obvious, it's inexcusable. The person that ignores it is a fool. So we're looking at the heart of the issue now. And then I was thinking, well, we've got all this, it all makes sense, it's great, it's challenging me, and I don't feel that comfortable because I don't know how to earn money apart from crime. So what am I going to do? This is really the curveball. So I go to Islamic websites and I try to find arguments to disprove everything I've proved myself. I try to get out of it. Really hard, I try to get out of it. And then I get to the point and I realise there's no getting out. Truth is truth. You can't hide it. It's just there, isn't it? It's like the doorbell. Someone goes, look, I'm really sorry, someone's died in a car crash. You might deny it then, but the truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. There's a point you're going to have to accept the truth. So I thought, well, there's one or two things I'm going to do. Am I going to leave this till hopefully I get 15 minutes before I die? That's my insurance policy. I'm going to pack it all and go, yeah. Or I'm going to take responsibility now. So I took the responsibility now. And the very next day, a door came off on a cannabis grow where I was growing 100 plants. And it was a shock because the evening before I got on my knees and I said, God, I'm sorry. I accept you. I see you. I accept Christ. The next morning, I've got raided. And I'm like, what's going on? I get a bit angry with God. I don't understand what's going on. I've gone through all this and how I've been going to prison. And I had a lot of previous in drugs. So anyway, I go down to the police station and I hand myself in. I say, look, I'm all confused, thinking, what's God's will? I go to the police station, I hand myself in. I say, look, I'm the guy you're looking for. It's me. And they do the interview. A court date gets set. And then I go to court, and my barrister, a private barrister came to me and said, Chris, it's not looking good, mate. The Crown Prosecution Service, they want 6 years maximum sentence. He says, I can argue down a few categories, but I can't argue down to a suspended sentence. It's not happening. He said, do you want to ring Katrina? And I bought one of them cheap 999 phones. In the criminal world, we call them bashers. I bought one of these cheap phones to ring Katrina, and I couldn't get a signal in the Crown Court, so I was like, oh, barrister's going to have to tell her where I've gone like this. I walk into the court, I sit down, and my barrister, it's a right mess. He's forgot his wig and everything. And anyway, he looks at shambles, honestly, and I paid this guy. Anyway, so he introduces me to the Crown Court judge, and the Crown Court judge just says, okay, brilliant. And then my barrister doesn't talk again. I've got my head down and I'm in prayer. One thing I'd like to say today is I actually deserved punishment. That's true. I committed a crime. You commit a crime, you pay for a crime. And that's what I deserved. But God had a different plan. And what happened was the Crown Court judge argued with the Crown Prosecution Service, said, why are you saying 6 years? He went blah, 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 blah. And it was like inadmissible, it was intelligence, listening to phone calls, all these type of things. And it went from 6, so this was not my barrister, this was the judge arguing with the CPS. It went 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 20 months suspended for 2 years. And I didn't even stand up, it all finished, people are going off, my barrister came over, like, Chris, you can go, mate. I was like, what is going on? He goes, I don't know. He says, somebody's watching over you, mate. He didn't really mean that, but he said, it's one of those sort of scenario, someone's watching over me. And then he said, we've got a bigger problem now. I was like, what are we going to do with now? He says, POCA. Well, what's POCA? It's Proceeds of Crime Act. They're coming after you for illegal gains, and it's for a lot of money. And if you ever watch these programs where they go after boats and cars and houses and money and all that, they don't let go. They're like a Staffordshire Bull Terrier with a toy. They will yank hard. Anyway, so there was this court date set for Parker. They went for my passport, my driving licence, everything, ripped it all apart, somewhere I've travelled, what I bought, what cars, my name, and everything. And the date got set, and it got adjourned, and it got relisted. Anyway, 2 days before the court hearing for Parker, my barrister called me and he said, "Chris, something odd has happened here." And I said, "What's happened?" He said, "Well, it's disappeared out of the shared system. It's a Ministry of Justice shared system that everyone can import." He said, "The date's gone." Oh, okay, what's that mean? He goes, "Well, normally they relist it. It gets relisted another day." He goes, "It's not there." I said, "Well, what do we do?" He goes, "Well, I'll ring the Proceeds Crime Act. I'll ring Parker direct. So I'll give you a call back in half an hour." So he called me back half an hour. He goes, "Chris," he's laughing down the phone. He says, "You're not going to believe this, mate." He says, "I'm no longer interested in you." He says, "Get on with your life." And I'm like, "What?" So you can imagine, I'm tingles on my back, I'm on my knees, go, "Oh, God is this close." But you soon know when he converts to Christianity, God can be that far away. He's close and far away depending on how we are. And it was an amazing experience. So then what I did was I was submitted, and I said, "What do you want me to do?" And I studied. What time did we finish? I've just lost. Is it 1/4 past? Is that right?
Just carry on, brother.
But yeah, so I submitted and I prayed and said, "God, what do you want to do?" And sometimes it's hard to know whether it's your own feelings or whether it's God. And the way you do know, I've discovered, is God is connecting the dots ahead of you all the time anyway. He's always just up ahead, working on the scene. And when you come across those dots and they all connect, you go, "Oh yeah, that couldn't have been me. I couldn't have done that." So you start to see his plan. But one of the greatest things that I learned out of all of it was, don't try and be a Christian the way you think a Christian should be. Don't try and build a God that you think that God should be. God isn't Lego, but we all fall into a big trap. We can all get our Lego pieces and we can build a God to suit ourselves. Now, from the tradition that I'm from is Anglican evangelical, and if you know about the sola scriptura, it's sola fide, sola scriptura. It is by the Bible alone. The Bible is the authority. If you want to know your God, read God's word. If you want to see the delights of your God, look at his creation and Christ and all those things. And also, there is a continual battle that I'm fighting to this day. And that battle is over the heart. And it's not, as you know, that magnificent pump that runs on fizzy pop and burgers. It's the figurative heart, the seat of motivation, where all of your desires, your wants, your thoughts brew. And the beautiful scripture here, and we all know it, is Ezekiel 36:26, where it's God that gets involved. We can do nothing. God has to interject into our lives. And God says, "Moreover, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh." God has to do it, because no amount of soaking a stone in water will do anything. And ladies, all of you ladies, it doesn't work. It will not do anything. It has to be God that steps in. It has to be God that regenerates. So as I said, thank you very much for the privilege this evening of coming and speaking to you guys. It is a great privilege, and it's a great honour, because I just see it really as humbling myself before my God. And if he wants to use me, he'll use me. If he doesn't want to use me, he won't use me. But it's always trying to have that attitude that here I am, send me. And we all are on a battle. We're all fighting every single day. Sin is our oldest friend. It's the easiest thing to do. But let us fall always before the Lamb of God at the cross to the Father and submit to his will. Thank you very much. Amen.